Good morning. Happy August. Happy Dogust. I'll explain. My name is Yasara Antar, and I'm a member of your Board of Trustees. A special warm welcome to anyone visiting today. Is anyone visiting today? Welcome. Join us after service for coffee or tea. We'll answer any questions you have about UUism. We also have a membership coordinator on standby just for you. If you're joining us online, visit our website for more info about MLUC. Who and what we are will be covered somewhat in today's sermon, but I found an abbreviated form of the 7 principles that I'd like to share with you. Show of hands, how many of you know the 7 principles? That's what I thought. Here they are. We believe each person means a lot. We believe you should be kind, that you should be free to learn together, search for what is true, vote, work for peace, and take care of Earth, our home. That's it, mostly. We welcome everyone with an open mind, whomever you are, whomever you love, whatever your background, you are welcome here. Actually, don't have any special announcements, but some reminders. Go to the front page, sign up for back to school supplies for kids in August. You'll find a sign up genius there. If you sign up for IHN items, that's due today. If you need an extension, see one of the coordinators. August 1st is otherwise known as Dogust. Does anyone know what that is? Dogust in the US, it's a birthday celebration for shelter dogs who don't have an official birthday. So happy birthday to all the shelter dogs everywhere still looking for a forever home. Now please join me in our mission statement. Together we transform lives through our love, service, and our welcoming faith. Please silence your devices and enjoy the service.
Good morning. My name is Michael Cohen, and I am the worship associate for this morning's service. Today we're pleased to welcome Rev Dave Hunter as our guest minister. Rev Hunter is a semi-retired UU minister. He and his wife, Rev Carrie Muller, are part-time ministers for the UU Fellowship in Pottstown. Dave and Carrie are also members of MLUC and were married here in this building by our beloved Reverend Brad Greeley 41 years ago in 1980. Dave, now listen to his credentials. Dave is a graduate of Princeton University, Harvard Law School, Wellesley Theological Seminary, Wesley Theological Seminary. It still is impressive. From 1975 to 2000, Dave was a lawyer at the Department of Justice in the voting section of the Civil Rights Division. Reverend Hunter, welcome to the pulpit this morning. In our service today, you'll be hearing a theme of why being a Unitarian Universalist matters and the reasons why each and every one of us should be proud to proclaim it as our faith. We're also privileged to welcome our musical guest today, Liz Blygan. So now sit back and enjoy Liz, who will be accompanied by her son Carl as they perform the prelude to get our service started.
I'd like to make a sculpture out of glass, so beautiful that it could make you cry. But when I look out at the snowflakes as they fall against my window, I cannot seem to bring myself to try. I just can't seem to bring myself to try to make a thing of beauty, just one thing of beauty, only for an instant, with truth and with love, to make a thing of beauty, just one thing of beauty, a single thing of beauty, and that would be enough. I'd like to weave a tapestry of yarn, so intricate that it could break your heart. But when I look out at that web as it's shining in the sunlight, I cannot seem to bring myself to start. I just can't seem to bring myself to start to make a thing of beauty, just one thing of beauty, only for an instant, with truth and with love, to make a thing of beauty, just one thing of beauty, a single thing of beauty, and that would be enough. I'd like to sing a song of breath and air, so wonderful that it could touch your soul. But when I listen to the robin as he's heralding the springtime, I cannot take the first step toward my goal. I just can't take the first step toward my goal. But I can try to live a life that makes an honest story, with challenges, adventures, with truth and with love, and that would be a thing of beauty, a single thing of beauty, a human thing of beauty, and that would be enough.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Dawn Star Saras Borchelt, and I'm your Director of Lifespan Faith Development. My husband Matthew is here with me today lighting our chalice because it's our 23rd wedding anniversary today. The Fire of Commitment by Paul Sprecher. We light this chalice to kindle the fire of commitment, to spread our beloved faith, proclaim the good news that all are worthy and all are welcome, that God is love and none shall be left behind. May we carry this flame to all we encounter, letting our lives shine with its glow. Please join me in rising if you are in this room and able, or relaxing on your couch, or wherever you are, in singing hymn number 42, Morning So Fair to See. Once upon a time, there was a town that sat in the shadow of a mountain. And carved on the side of that mountain were the words, "The answer is no." This is my kind of answer. Ask my kids. No one knew where the words came from or why they were there. They'd just always been there. And whenever somebody in that town had a question, all they had to do was look up at the mountain and read the answer. The answer was always no. Making decisions was very simple, and life went on smoothly and easily for the people who lived there until one day, Ma Custis was trying to figure out what to make for dinner for her family, but she just couldn't decide. So she went out in her yard and she looked up at the mountain. "Should I make liver for dinner?" she asked. And the mountain said, "No." All right, I knew that really, but maybe I should make steak for dinner? And the mountain said, "No." How about chicken? And the mountain said, "What about beans and rice or popcorn or broccoli?" But the mountain said nothing but no. All night and all the next day and all the next night. After that, she kept asking questions, and all the mountain ever said was, "The answer is no." She and her family got very hungry. And finally, she gave up and made liver anyway because it was the first thing she had thought of. But Ma Custis had had enough. She glared at the mountain and she stamped her foot and she shook her fist and she said, "Why is the answer always no? Why can't it just say yes for once?" She turned around and stomped away to ring the town bell and call the town meeting. Now, no one would miss a town meeting. It was the excitement of the day. So everyone came, and they all listened carefully as Ma Custis told her story. "Seems to me," she said, "that we have a problem. The mountain just isn't helping us like it should. Seems to me it would be nice if it would say yes every once in a while." The townsfolk knew that Ma Custis had a point, but they didn't much like the idea. Change is hard. It's been the same for so long. But they thought, and finally they agreed the mountain would have to be recarved. So the stone carver spent the next 2 weeks up on the mountain from sundown to sunup, and when he was done, the mountain said, "The answer is yes." Okay, how do you think this is going to work out? He rang the bell, and everyone came to see the new mountain. New answer on the mountain. And Ma Custis figured she ought to be the person to ask the first question of this new and different mountain since she'd discovered the problem with the old one, so she stepped right up and she said, "Should I make liver for dinner tonight?" And the mountain said, "Yes." Well, now, Ma Custis almost fell over from surprise. But Pa Custis told me he'd never forgive me if I served liver again, and all my kids threatened to hide in the barn for a week. Should I really serve liver for dinner? And the mountain said, "The answer is yes." Everybody began to grumble, especially Ma Custis's family. "Well, but I just can't," said Ma. "I mean, I promised I would never make liver again. Are you telling me I should break my promise?" And the mountain said, "Yes." "This just can't be right. This just can't be right. What are we going to do?" Ma Custis asked. Everybody thought, especially Ma Custis's kids, who were very worried about the liver. Now, I actually like liver, but that's not the point of this story. Finally, one of the smallest but one of the Custis kids piped up and said, "Why does there have to be just one answer? Can't we have more?" No one had ever thought of such a thing before. They talked it out, and finally they decided that the mountain ought to say, "The answer is sometimes yes, and sometimes no, and sometimes wait and see, and sometimes I just don't know." The stone carver pointed out that although he could change that, it would take a while, and so he suggested that maybe they should hang up some kind of sign on the mountain to let people know that the answer was coming. And so that's what they did. And a funny thing happened. For a little while, everyone waited eagerly to see the new answer. But soon they got tired of waiting, and they all started asking each other questions and helping everyone else find answers that seemed to fit. They realized that different questions usually had different answers, and sometimes the same question had more than one answer, and there were many more answers than they had imagined. And after a while, they thought that maybe the answer the mountain was giving them was just right, just as it was, better and more sensible than any other answer it had ever given. And so they left it as it was, because the mountain said, "The answer is under construction." And I have to tell you that I didn't pick this story with this in mind, but our answers are going to have to be under construction again, too, because all of our counties have gotten back into the orange range of transmission for COVID this week. And so we're here today, and we might be here next Sunday, or we might have to be online. We don't know yet. We're going to have to wait and see what the right answer is to keep everybody safe and protected and keep meeting together as a community. So I would invite you to talk to me about this during coffee hour today, and talk to anybody else you see who's in church leadership, so we can hear what people are thinking and how people are feeling, because that matters when you're figuring out what the right answer is. And I'm going to go outside now and do some gardening. So if there are any children who'd like to join in with me on that, you're welcome to follow me out. And the rest of you, please enjoy the service.
Well, that was an interesting story. As is our custom at MLUC, one half of what we collect during our weekly offering goes to an offering outreach partner. And during the summer months of July and August, our offering outreach partner is the Interfaith Hospitality Network. This organization provides a caring and positive environment for homeless families while they design and implement a plan to break the cycle of homelessness in their lives. MLUC is part of a group of churches and synagogues in the Philadelphia metropolitan area that provide meals and housing for homeless families 1 week at a time, several times during the year. Those of you watching remotely can use the Give link on the website. You can also text your offering to with the instructions that you see behind me, and for those watching remotely that you see on your screen. As we pass our collection plate here within the sanctuary, let's enjoy another beautiful musical piece from Liz Blygan, accompanied by Vincent Craig.
I'm trying to tell you something about my life. Maybe give me insight between black and white. And the best thing you've ever done for me is to help me take my life less seriously. It's only life after all. Yeah. Well, darkness has a hunger that's insatiable, and lightness has a call that's hard to hear. And I wrap my fear around me like a blanket, and I sailed my ship of safety till I sank it. I'm crawling on your shores. I went to the doctor, I went to the mountain, I looked to the children, and I drank from the fountain. There's more than one answer to these questions, pointing me in a crooked line. And the less I seek my source for some definitive, closer I am to find, yeah. Closer I am to find, yeah. Well, I went to see the doctor of philosophy with a poster of Rasputin and a beard down to his knee. He never did marry or see a B-grade movie. He graded my performance. He said he could see through me. I spent 4 years prostrate to the higher mind, got my paper and I was free. I went to the doctor, I went to the mountain, I looked to the children, and I drank from the fountain. There's more than one answer to these questions, pointing me in a crooked line. And the less I seek my source for some definitive, closer I am to find, yeah. The closer I am to find, yeah. I stopped by a bar at 3 a.m. to seek solace in a bottle or possibly a friend. And I woke up with a headache like my head against a board, twice as cloudy as I'd been the night before, and I went in seeking clarity. I went to the doctor, I went to the mountain, I looked to the children, and I drank from the fountain. Yeah, we go to the doctor, we go to the mountain, we look to the children, and we drink from the fountain. Yeah, we go to the Bible, and we go through the workout. We read up on revival, and we stand up for the lookout. There's more than one answer to these questions, pointing me in a crooked line. And the less I seek my source for some definitive, closer I am to find. Closer I am to find. Closer I am to find, yeah.
Thank you, Liz. And thank you for the generosity with your donations. These gifts help our church, our community, and our offering outreach partner make a difference in the world. And now we turn to our weekly ritual that's called Candles of Community. It's where we share joys and sorrows within our safe and supportive church community. After each candle is lit, please join me in saying, "We hold you in our hearts." The first candle that we light is the MLUC Candle of Remembrance. We have been lighting this candle for the last several months. We light this candle for those that we have lost or have struggled with the COVID virus. Now, we are finding a way to deal with COVID, similarly to how we have adapted to other health issues and that have now become part of our daily lives. I'm glad that we are now doing things that we can feel more normal. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't still be cautious and use common sense. We should continue to encourage everyone to vaccinate. We should continue to remember those that have been directly or indirectly affected by the virus. And for those families and those individuals, we light this candle and hold you in our hearts. We light a candle of celebration for my daughter, Julie Cohen. 4 weeks from yesterday, she'll be getting married to a wonderful young man named Ryan Mowers. This is a wedding that was supposed to have taken place last August, but because of COVID, we had to postpone it for a year. It goes without saying that my wife, Teddy, and I are a little bit excited about this. So for my daughter, Julie, and her fiancé, Ryan, we hold you in our hearts. And while there were no additional joys and sorrows that I received this week, I am cognizant that there are many joys and sorrows that we might be holding on to that are too deep for words. And for those, we light one more candle. Amen. And now please join me in our responsive reading this morning, which you'll find in your gray hymnals. It's number 654. I'll give you a chance to get that. The responsive reading is called Impassioned Clay. Deep in ourselves reside the religious impulse. We have religion when we stop deluding ourselves that we are self-sufficient, self-sustaining, or self-derived. We have religion when our hearts are capable of leaping up at beauty, when our nerves are edged by some dream in the heart. We have religion when we have an abiding gratitude for all we have received. We have religion when we look upon people with all their failings and still find in them good, when we look beyond people to the grandeur in nature and to the purpose in our heart. Thank you.
Good morning. Good to be here. Good to see everybody. A few decades ago, back in the last century, the Reverend John Morgan, the Joseph Priestley District's extension minister, organized several new UU congregations in northeastern Pennsylvania. This reading is pieced together from his essay, "Shout It Out, Folks, We're Evangelists Too." I'm not willing to keep quiet. I am an evangelist. It's in my family blood. It's in our spiritual blood, and without it, our movement suffers a great loss of power and passion. Evangelism is what the church does when it feels it has a saving message it cannot help but share it with the world. A simple definition of evangelism that makes sense to me as a Unitarian Universalist is this: evangelism is sharing our dream with others in order to transform the world. Notice a few things about this definition. First, evangelism is sharing. It is not simply individualistic, although unless we feel the power of our dream personally, our sharing will seem shallow. Evangelism, while personally rooted, is profoundly relational. You cannot be an evangelist all by yourself. Second, evangelism begins with a dream, a vision that has power to claim some ultimate demand on our lives. Evangelism is about important issues, such as how to live and how to die, to what causes we are committed, and to whom we owe allegiance. Evangelism requires a life response, confidence, loyalty, cooperation. In a movement that for some time has not required cooperation as much as individualism, loyalty to a greater cause than personal growth is a hard lesson. Third, evangelism aims at transforming the whole world to one bearing closer resemblance to our dream. I don't believe in forcing our beliefs on others, but I do believe the principles and purposes we express will make the world better. I believe that there is power and purpose in our Unitarian Universalist dream to shape the world around us into one more loving and just. Fourth, you have to understand and be committed to the dream in order to share it. We have such a deep and rich heritage. We have a vision to share. An effective evangelist is the bridge between the past and the future in the present moment. She or he knows the faith and therefore is not afraid to share it. The whole purpose of evangelism is to tell the good news so that others may share its blessings. And now let us join in singing number 1018 in the Teal hymnal, "Come and Go With Me to That Land," 1018. A few years ago, Carrie and I were the part-time ministers for the Gettysburg Unitarian Universalist Church, driving over to Gettysburg a couple of weekends each month. Some of the billboards along the way caught my attention then, and I still remember them. After you die, you will meet God. Call 1-800-4-TRUTH. Then more directly there was, if you die tonight, heaven or hell, John 3:36. And later, the Holy Bible, inspired absolute final, Psalm 119, verse 89. That got me to thinking, why don't we have billboards like that proclaiming our Unitarian Universalist message, our UU good news? Just as I had that thought, right there ahead of us on the right was a large and very blank billboard. I started fantasizing about the message that we could put on that billboard. Unitarian Universalism is the religion to have for having more than one. A catchy slogan, but its premise that having more than one religion is a practice to be encouraged. That needs further discussion. Then I thought of another. Unitarian Universalism feels good as a religion should. Feeling good is important, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not what religion is primarily about. But a third idea popped into my mind. Unitarian Universalism tastes great, less filling. That won't do. I want Unitarian Universalism to be more filling, not less. But then suddenly I thought of the old Burma shave roadside signs that used to line our highways. How many of you remember them? A few. It's an older group. It gave McDonald that needed charm. Hello, Hollywood, goodbye, farm. Burma shave. A series of signs spaced along the road. They told little stories, always ending with the brand name, Burma shave. Have any of you actually ever tried Burma shave? I haven't. Some of the poems were more or less related to the virtues of Burma shave with an undercurrent of sexuality. The big blue tubes, just like Louise, you get a thrill from every squeeze. Burma shave. Others were about driving. If daisies are your favorite flower, keep pushing up those miles per hour. It's about driving with a public service message, warning against excessive speed. Here's another of that type. Although insured, remember, kiddo, they don't pay you, they pay your widow. I like the ones that refer to themselves. If you don't know whose signs these are, you haven't driven very far. And this one is both self-referential and about safe driving. Slow down, Pa, sakes alive, Ma missed signs 4 and 5. The saddest Burma shave sign of them all for me was this one. Farewell, O verse along the road, how sad to see you're out of mode. Burma shave. But maybe this approach is not out of mode. Maybe it's time for nostalgia. We could line the rural highways, I thought to myself. We could line the highways with Burma shave style signs extolling the virtues of Unitarian Universalism. Faith and reason, no need to fight in any season, religion light, Unitarian Universalist Association. Emphasizing the partnership of faith and reason, I like that. But religion light? I don't think that should be what we're about. God is gone, we are here, lifelong song, only beer? That may be a little too subtle for the highway. It appears to emphasize our tradition of humanism, but beyond that, I'm not sure myself what it means. I think it's aimed at those who spend all their time in front of the tube, beer in hand. Here's one for the Latinx audience. Original sin? No way. Come join with us, Jose. This verse does state in a concise way our position on original sin. Our rejection of the doctrine of original sin provides the theological foundation for a covenant together as congregations to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. But I wouldn't want folks to think that we don't take evil and sinfulness seriously. What's next? Sonnets, not bonnets. Seeds, not beads. What this says is that we like poetry, especially poetry that follows a classic form, such as the sonnet. It says that we don't have a dress code. You don't have to wear your bonnet. It says that we give our children seeds of learning, seeds that, if properly nurtured, will grow into beautiful flowers or strong trees. We don't just give them beads to play with and quickly lose. Is that sufficiently obvious for the highway? I didn't think so. And I'm concerned that this would be read as fostering an anti-Catholic bias if the beads are understood as the beads of the rosary. The next one is even more concise, if nothing else. Polity, frivolity. Prayer, where? That's a model of the economical use of words, but I've been told that if you start your pitch with the word polity, you lose half your audience right there. Polity, by the way, refers simply to how we govern ourselves, as in politics. We have congregational polity, with authority vested in our congregations, not, for example, in a bishop. And the apparently negative attitude toward prayer in this verse cries out for discussion. Let's try another. Spiritual growth, intellectual honesty, we have both without the monastery. That works. I like the juxtaposition of the spiritual and the intellectual. But then you get to the punchline, without the monastery. Monastery avoidance is not a big religious motivator these days. No more creeds, but rational stands, love-filled deeds, and helping hands. That's pretty good on our non-creedalism, on our rationality, and on our emphasis on making the world a better place. But some might find it weak on spirituality, and others might object that it emphasizes good deeds at the expense of action to end oppression. A faith for all seasons, a church that has reasons. That starts out well, a faith for all seasons. That is surely what we must be, a faith for all seasons. But some would object to our calling ourselves a church rather than a society, congregation, fellowship, or whatever, and saying that we have reasons without giving the reader a hint about what these reasons are might lead some to suppose that we are some sort of Gnostic cult with secret knowledge. Then on the way back home, as we were nearing the Blue Route, I thought again about the blank billboard I had seen on the way up. Then suddenly, I had the terrible thought, the nightmare, the horrible realization, maybe that blank billboard is our Unitarian Universalist message. Maybe we're already paying good money for that billboard, and we have nothing to say. Maybe that's our billboard, and it's blank because we have no message. Or maybe in our cleverness, we're telling the world that if you're a Unitarian Universalist, you can believe whatever you want. What cruel thoughts. I was in a state of distress the rest of the day. The next day, I started thinking, what is at the core of our faith? How would I summarize Unitarian Universalism so concisely that one could get it at 70 miles an hour? Indeed, do we have a core? Or is ours a donut religion, sweet but not nourishing, with a big hole in the middle? I think we do have a core. We are not fluff. We are not empty. So here it is, the essence, the core of Unitarian Universalism in 3 short bullet points. First, as Unitarian Universalists, we remember that we are the product of our history and traditions. Second, we believe that revelation is not sealed. New understanding, new wisdom will forever remain available. And third, while we may not reach agreement about God, we do agree that God's neighborhood is here. Actually, this is only part of the core as seen by one person at one time. I could expand this list, but 3 points should be enough for one sermon. Thinking about the essence, the core values of Unitarian Universalism is a useful idea, useful exercise, and I commend it to you. We don't all have to come up with the same list, but I'm confident that there would be a lot of overlap among us. Now let's take a closer look. Let's explore together my three statements. First, we are the product of our history and traditions. Our roots are in Christianity, with spiritual ancestors who were declared heretics during the early formative years of the Common Era. Our roots are in the Protestant Reformation, both in Calvinism and in the Radical Reformation centered primarily in Eastern Europe. Our roots are in developments in Protestantism in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, especially in the United States, as we rejected inherited views of the nature of humanity and of the nature of God. Here's a little story that I feel illustrates how we can find nourishment in our history. It's a story about Jesus, and it's from the New Testament, from the Gospel according to Matthew, and also Mark. Jesus left Gennesaret and went away to the district of Tyre and Sidon. Just then a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But he did not answer her at all. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting at us." Then he answered her, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." And Jesus explained, "It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." The woman responded, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus answered her, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed immediately. Our first response to this story is likely to be confusion. What do sheep and dogs and crumbs and miraculous healings have to do with us? But this story, like so much in the Bible, requires interpretation. After all, it was written almost 2,000 years ago in circumstances very different from ours. As you know, Jesus and his followers were Jews. The key thing here is that this woman, this mother who so rudely imposes herself on Jesus, she was not Jewish. She was a Canaanite. She asked Jesus for his help in curing her daughter. This leads to our second response, which may be one of shock. We are accustomed to the Jesus who says, "Love your enemies," to the Jesus of the parable of the Good Samaritan. But here Jesus says to this mother, "Get lost, lady. I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I'm here to help my people, but not those who are different. Helping your daughter would be like taking the children's food and throwing it to the dogs." Our shock continues with the mother's rejoinder. She won't accept this dismissal by Jesus and argues right back. "You may be a son of God, Jesus, but you're sure not acting like one. Even the dogs get to eat the table scraps." Jesus hears her. He thinks about what she has said, and he realizes that he has made a mistake, that he had gotten it wrong. His message of love could not be restricted to his own people. It was a universal message. All people should share in love. All people should be treated as having dignity and worth. And Jesus grants her her wish. It's an incredible story. We thought that Jesus was perfect, and here he's shown as in need of remedial moral education. And his teacher in this patriarchal society was a woman. It's quite amazing that this story has been preserved in the Bible. If we pull out our roots and discard them, we lose a lot. We are left adrift, and we risk going with the latest fad. In my view, we should strengthen our roots. For example, we can maintain our identity and preserve our roots by raising our children and our grandchildren to be Unitarian Universalists, to be Unitarian Universalists who understand where we have come from. I would like our children and their children as they mature to be at the heart of the next generation of Unitarian Universalists. Second, We believe that revelation is not sealed. New knowledge, new insight will forever remain available. Revelation is not sealed. That's my favorite line from one of my favorite hymns, Light of Ages and of Nations, by the great 19th century Unitarian hymn writer Samuel Longfellow. Its numbers 189 and 190 in our hymnal. You can look it up later. Our history has been one of change and innovation. We accept new ideas. We value truth, even if that means setting aside once cherished beliefs. We value experience, our own experience, as well as that of people in the Bible. So let us be open to the new. You may feel uneasy here. You may sense a tension, indeed a contradiction between the two principles. First I say, hold on to history, hold on to the past. Then I say, be open to the new, accept change. Yes, there is tension here, but it's healthy tension. We must hold on to the past, but not uncritically. We must accept change, but not simply for the sake of change itself. Let's go back to the story of Jesus and the Canaanite woman. It's a story that combines the two ideas. It is from our heritage, but it advocates change, the acceptance of new ideas, of new enlightenment. It presents Jesus' exposure to a new idea. At first he resists, then he thinks about it, then he realizes it's a good idea, and he embraces it. Let our roots ever be sunk deeper, and may they be well secured, but let us always be open to new ideas, to new people, to change. As we like to sing, roots hold me close, wings set me free. Third, while we may not reach agreement about God, we do agree that God's neighborhood is here. My emphasis in this affirmation is on here, not God. We may have different concepts of God and different views on the usefulness of the word God. Personally, I find the image, the metaphor God, too valuable to give up once we set aside the impossible and acknowledge the unknowable. Regardless of our differences, as Unitarian Universalists, we agree pretty well that our focus should be on this world, not on the next one, on this realm, not on some utopian realm beyond time and space. We want our world to be one of peace, justice, sustainability, love, and hope. We realize full well that we do not have such a world now. We do not await or expect the second coming of Christ to bring about the world of our dreams. We do not rely on the miraculous intervention of God. To the extent that God works in the world, it must be through humanity. The only hands that God has are our hands. What then are we to do? How do we as individuals, as a congregation, as a denomination, how do we work to bring about the realm of peace, justice, sustainability, love, and hope? I would like to suggest, very briefly, 6 things that I think we can do, regardless of our political persuasion. First, we can raise our children and our grandchildren and all the children of this religious community and the various congregations that we are or will be a part of. We can raise our children to have good values. We do that primarily by setting a good example for them. Second, we can raise questions about the preservation of democracy, questions about the climate crisis, questions about poverty and inequality. We can ask questions of ourselves, of each other, of our neighbors, of our leaders in Harrisburg and in Washington. Third, we can vote. There's always another election coming, whether we like it or not. We can vote, and we can encourage others to vote. We can participate in political campaigns with our time and our treasure. Let's not take the right to vote for granted. Many have struggled and sacrificed to make our nation a democracy in reality, not just in mythology. That struggle is not over. Indeed, democracy is under threat today as never before in our lifetime. Fourth, we can respond to needs and injustices. We can feed the hungry and provide shelter for the homeless. We can respond with a voice of moral outrage when our society visits injustice and oppression on our fellow human beings because, for example, of their race, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, or religion. Fifth, We can support those in this community who are working to help those who suffer, to help the victims of society, to help bring about peace, justice, sustainability, love, and hope. Sixth, and finally, we can be welcoming to those who would join us here. For I believe that Unitarian Universalism is a force for good in the world, and our effectiveness will be enhanced by greater numbers. It's always the right time to spread the good news of Unitarian Universalism. To close, here is one last Burma Shave attempt. Our faith in love, our love in deeds, our lives transcend our earthly needs. Amen. And now let us join in singing our closing hymn, number 187. It sounds along the ages. And if you're wondering what the pronoun it stands for in that hymn, it's the Word of God. 187. We extinguish this flame, but not the gift of wisdom, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and in our hands until we are together again. May we go forth with such hope in our eyes and with such love in our hearts that this world of ours may someday be transformed into a world of peace and justice. Amen. And now the postlude.
Have you seen a newborn baby? The wonder in her eyes. Every sight and sound's astounding. Every moment's a surprise. Mother's smiling at her laughter. Father's babbling like a child. Now they're cast into a new world by the glory of her smile. We were glorious once, and we're glorious still. And if we take the time to look, we can see that glory well. See that old man on the corner, rags wrapped around his feet, shopping cart to hold his life in, and he's out begging on the street. But turn the clock back 60 years. Who's that laughing little boy playing with his sister? His mother's pride and joy. We were glorious once, and we're glorious still. And if we take the time to look, we can see that glory well. When we reach out to each other, well, let a smile come shining through. For a moment, feel the glory, no matter what else we've been through. We were glorious once, and we're glorious still. And if we take the time to look, we can see that glory well. We were glorious once, and we're glorious still. And if we take the time to look, we can see that glory well.